And you are back with Sigaram on Southside FM. And as we've been promising you at the start of the show, we are very, very privileged at the moment to be in conversation with a young and very, very rapidly rising actor, Ashwin Kakumanu.
Vanakkam, sir. How are you?
Very well, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, what we're going to do is we will speak in English. Yepo venalam Tamil pesa virumla pesanga.
Seri, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with, I know the response to Pizza 3 has been fantastic. People are saying it's the best of the pizza films so far. When C.V. Kumar came to you with the idea, how confident were you that this film was going to work?
When Mr. C.V. Kumar came, it's a part of a brand, it's part of a franchise, so I knew there would be some basic reception and maybe expectation for it. Obviously, the only responsibility was that because there was going to be an expectation that it can't just be average, it has to be good, and it has to come back to the roots of the original film, which was more of a horror film, I think, than the second film. So I was, when the director told me the story of, if you see the story, it's actually about a spirit that can't remember how and when she was killed, and struggling to find out. But she's in the protagonist's kitchen. The protagonist is a chef who has a restaurant and who started up a restaurant, and he does everything from cooking to delivering the food. So when he's asleep at night, he starts hearing these noises of this spirit in the kitchen, and he finds this blood-red sweet dish in his kitchen that keeps showing up every morning in the oven and in the fridge. So it was all very unique in that sense, at how this is all thing. The dish is connected to the girl, to the murders that are happening. So when I heard that aspect of the story, I was pretty confident that this would be something a little bit different from the usual horror film.
Well, definitely it sounds so. Unfortunately, here in South Africa, it has not released theatrically yet. So South Africans are going to have to wait to release on OTT. But I understand you are very, very happy with the comments from the critics and the audience reaction so far?
Yeah, the response has been mostly positive. I mean, no film will have 100% sort of positive thing, but I would say majority has been mostly positive. So that's been happy, and I'm also happy that most of the critics and the people who have seen it have kind of singled out my performance as well. So that's also been a plus, because I gave a lot to the film in terms of performing, since it was a chef, and I wanted to make sure that usually, when you see chefs, there's a certain OCD quality, there's a certain hot-temperedness that they have, because their work is like that, because it's a matter of taste and all that if their work, either in terms of timing, if it takes too long to go from the kitchen to the table, or, in terms of taste, it could be as simple as them getting shut down or something like that. So I wanted to play a chef, and a chef who has had that. A lot of reality shows also, when you see chefs, they have that quality that, just kind of comes out. So I wanted to play with that, and a lot of people, I think, singled out the performance. I was quite happy about that.
Okay, so I'm very excited to hear. So you are like one of those really, really dedicated actors who researches a role, not just going up, pitching up on set and trying to act.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me, your role in Nadanisi Naigal, how did that come about? Because I understand that you did audition for Vinithandi Varuvaya.
So in Vinithandi Varuvaya, that was around the time that I had started acting. I think the casting directors had seen me in a short film, and so they'd asked me to audition for a role, VTV, and the role was of Trisha's fiancé.
Okay.
And I actually got the role then, but what happened was, just as about to get on the car to go to the train station to get to Kerala, because they were shooting the church scene where she gets married.
Mm-hmm.
Just as about on my way to the station, they told me, don't get on the train, don't go to the station. We've not got permission for the church. It's been cancelled. It's been shifted to another date. So when we shifted to another date, I was not available then. I had some other work, so I couldn't do it. So they remembered me from that. So that was technically my sort of audition for a character in VTV. And they called me for Nadanisi Naigal, and they said, well, that didn't work out, and we're doing this film right now. It's like an experimental film, and Samira Reddy is the heroine, and Veera is the hero, and you have a small role. It's a 5-minute role, but in the 5 minutes, you're largely sharing screen space with Samira Reddy ma'am at that time. So, would you be interested? And I had felt like, I had missed that opportunity in VTV working with Gautam sir. And also as an actor, like I had, at that point when I'd already been doing the rounds for a couple of years, and I realized that if you're outside the industry, it's not easy to get like a plum lead role right in the start. You have to get your feet wet doing smaller roles. No one is going to give it to you on a platter. I realized at that point it was either children of people from the film industry who are getting that opportunity, or maybe people who had like a strong financial backing who were having films produced for them that were getting lead roles. So I just decided this is the best I'm going to get. I may as well do a small role and network with people and see if it leads to anything further.
I think that's the reason.
I did that role.
Sorry, sir. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. So I did that role with really no expectations, because my attitude at that point was that, at least this way, do small roles, you'll meet assistant directors, you'll meet a cinematographer, someone sees your face, someone sees your work ethic, they may refer you to someone else saying, hey, I know someone else who's writing something, they may suit you, or casting something that may suit you. So that's the approach I took. And that was how I got into that film. And it was a small role. It was literally 2 nights of shooting, I think. My character gets knocked off, killed off in that film pretty fast. But it like I said, I mean, my first few films as an actor, because I decided to take the role of, like a supporting actor, and said, I'm not going to try to be a lead actor. I'd rather work as a supporting actor in a good film rather than being a lead. In a Tamil cinema, they say there's a term called Upma film, Upma company, Upma film, which is typically in Kodambakam, you'll see a lot of startups, a lot of, people, aspirants trying to make films, and sometimes they're scams, sometimes they're real, but basically what it is that they're not very well funded, or they don't have the best, because they're not very well funded, they don't have access to either good actors or technicians or equipment or something like that. But people out of desperation will kind of say, I'll do anything to be a hero, and, they'll go for those auditions and they'll go get cast, and which is what in Tamil sometimes they'll say it's Upma company, Upma film and all that. So I was very clear that time that I would rather be a small actor of a very high caliber technicians and high caliber, actors and directors, rather than be the face of something that was not very well put together.
Well, one thing I know that you have proven, there's no such thing as a small actor. You can get small roles, but the great actor will shine despite the length of the role. And I think your career has been quite impressive. I mean, in those films, to have already acted under the direction of Gautam Vasudeva Menon, Venkat Prabhu and Mani Ratnam, not many actors can claim that.
Yeah, I think that's how. That was the route for me. I can't say that it was planned, obviously, because these are supporting roles. These are not the starring roles, but. For me, even after a point, I think for me, especially because I'd come up the way of a supporting actor, and for me, my goal or my prize was always, my eyes were always on the film, more holistically, the film as a whole, rather than I aspire to be the guy around which everything happens, like he's the hero, he should beat everyone up, he solves all the problems, he acts in slow motion, I was always, even as a kid and as an audience, I always liked films in which it was more about the characters and the story rather than one guy who was given like a godlike treatment. Looking at I think even in the beginning, out of necessity, looking at the bigger picture, but even though in the beginning of my career, out of necessity that it started as a supporting actor, I think even once I got to a point of being somewhat okay, I started doing lead roles. I still always had an eye for scripts that were, just good scripts and good characters rather than hero worship or hero glorification. Because if I had after a certain point, if I said, well, now I'm the hero, I'm not going to do anything less, I'm not going to settle for anything less, I wouldn't have done either Kadane Asapattai Balakumara. I wouldn't
Absolutely.
have done Fingertip. I wouldn't have done Ponniyin Selvan. These are the shows or projects I did because the director was interesting, the story was interesting, the character was interesting, and they were not necessarily a hero worship type of thing where the hero beat up everyone and saved the day. So that's kind of been my approach, because ever since I was a kid, I always liked films overall. I was just a huge fan of movies in general, and that's all I wanted to do.
Okay, you've just answered one of the questions I was going to ask you about how you got interested in films. Any particular actor or director that stands out from your memory, and you remember watching something and saying, look, I'd like to get into films? Anyone that stands out?
So, yeah, definitely, because as a kid, I think maybe that's, again, today's... Someone pointed out to me in the last few days when I was doing press for Pizza 3 that you seem to choose a lot of fantastical subjects, horror, fantasy, like that sort of thing. And it's kind of funny because when I was a kid, not horror. I never really liked horror when I was a kid, but I used to love sci-fi and fantasy. So I was a huge Star Wars fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
Star Wars, Indiana Jones, those movies I used to love because adventure, fantasy, it was an escape from reality. And as a kid, I think I really craved, as an introvert, I really craved that sort of escape. And I used to always be fascinated by, how are they creating these spaceships or these, in Indiana Jones, all the different effects and stuff. And so I used to be very much interested in VFX. So I used to pester my mother to buy me books on VFX and how movies were made. And I used to, when I was old enough to sort of save to get a camera, I used to make miniatures with clay. I used to make miniatures out of shoe boxes and make little sets and photograph them and kind of develop them. And so my interest has been largely technical. Like, it was more as a director. That was my first memory of the movies I kind of liked. And then then Sylvester Stallone. Also as a kid, Harrison Ford. If you ask me actors from Hollywood, I would say Harrison Ford and Sylvester Stallone, like the Rocky and Rambo movies, were a huge inspiration. In Tamil, I would say I always loved Mr. Kamal Haasan's films. Because again, I see Mr. Kamal Haasan as he's a technician, he's a magician, he's just not an actor, right? He more than just acting, when you see his films, there's a lot of technical elements that stand out in terms of either like Aburo Savadargal, either the dwarf or the four brothers and Michael Madana Kamaraj.
You're looking straight into my mind, because I was looking at the pictures you posted where you recreated scenes from Hey Ram, and I guessed from there that Mr. Kamal Haasan is definitely one of your sources of inspiration, as I think
Definitely.
he is for many
as
actors.
a child, when I saw his film, I always used to wonder. It used to stand out from the rest because technically it would just look. I couldn't explain it obviously as a kid, but it would just look different from other actors' films. It would look and feel different, and the emotions were much more hard hitting and layered and thought out. And obviously as a kid you can't say why, but you can just feel it, right, as an audience.
Okay, so, I think this is what you need to do. You need to work on a screenplay and then approach Mr. Kamal Haasan and ask him. And I think directing him will really be something for you. think about it.
That would be the dream, of course, but probably I need to think of some smaller, achievable dreams first.
No. I think it's very, very open to new ideas and fresh ideas, and very clearly you always think out of the box. I have to ask you this, looking at the outtakes from Venkat Prabhu's movies, there seems to be a lot of fun that sometimes happens on set. How was it like working on the sets of Mangatha, especially with Ajit Kumar sir?
So that movie is a very unique experience because, so by that point when I did Mangatha, I had done Yeramarivu, I was shooting it. I mean, I had done Nadunisi Naigal, I just finished Nadunisi Naigal, and I had started shooting for Yeramarivu.
Mm-hmm.
And Mangatha came to me, and there was a point where in between I was thinking of quitting acting because I was like, this is that point when I was trying to be a hero before I decided to be a supporting actor. And I was like, and I had basically, I had directed and acted in a short film that I thought with a monologue which I got from an acting workshop, and I thought, let this be like my I burned it on CDs and I would drop it off in production houses and say, these are my photos, these are short films I've made. And this was obviously before YouTube, right? So you had to put it on CD. There's no really, YouTube was not far reaching then, even though it was there in the West, it was not popular in India then.
Yes.
So, so then I had somehow, Mr. Charan, SPB sir's son, had seen my short film. And so Mr. Venkat Prabhu was casting Mangata. He had wanted someone, tall, broad, someone who looked like a Mumbai cop. And so when he told Charan, he said, hey, I just saw this audition and, maybe he'll work out for you. And I think the Mangata team was also in a hurry because they had I was the last person to join that film. In terms of that primary cast, they had already cast someone else who I think may have backed out. And so the film was on hold, and I think Mr. Ajit had kind of at that time, there were these rumors that were spreading that the movie was going to be dropped and, all those things. And Ajit sir and Venkat Prabhu sir were, trying very hard to find someone to fill that role because obviously at that point I didn't know, but when you see the end of the film, you realize that character is also pivotal because
absolutely,
Ajit sir, that Vinayak's character uses it as a body double to trick everyone. So they were very particularly looking for a certain type of frame or whatever look, and who in the end could even double up as, Vinayak's dead bodies, cops.
I hope you're going to remember this. There was a web series in which you shared the screen with Sunaina, Nila
Odiva.
I actually quite enjoyed it. I know it's a fantasy genre and may not have been everyone's cup of tea, but I thoroughly enjoyed every episode. Your experience working on that web series?
That was I had known Nandini ma'am from before, and she had narrated a movie to me which I really loved but didn't work out. So when she narrated this to me about a tattoo artist that falls in love with a vampire and stuff, I was taken. I was like, wow, a hero is a tattoo artist. Imagine the possibilities of the look. And then a vampire, this high school sweetheart who he had lost touch with, who's now a vampire. It sounds really cute and all that. So it was a great experience. It was like, at the time that I did it, it was the early days of web series in India, in Tamil at least. And, people didn't know the format. When I was telling people back then I'm doing web series, they're like, is it a serial? They didn't understand it. But I had a lot of faith in Nandini ma'am, and I just had a lot of faith in the show because I thought it was cute. But it was because it was early days of the web series, the budget was really tight, and, the promotion was, really tight. So I'm very happy when you say you saw it, because one of the things sometimes as an actor, I feel like, I don't think people saw this. I think people missed this work because I don't think it was promoted well. So, I really like my work. I really like working on the project, so I'm very happy that you said you saw it.
No, look, my pet peeve has been that I think, especially the Tamil industry, we are not marketing enough outside of India. And it was because I'm following India media so closely that I knew of Nila Vodiva. Otherwise, it would have just passed me by completely. So,
no, even people here, I don't think it penetrated here because it was one of those first OTTs that launched. And so anytime someone, and they were not they're not like any of the three big brands. So they you really have to go out of your way to market it, to let people know that this product is there and that you've launched and stuff. And it was also, at that time, people didn't understand the concept of subscribing to an app and watching something. This was in 2018, I think. Before it was a huge boom. And I knew, people used to ask me, don't you think it's a step down from the film? Is it because you're not getting films? I said, no, I'm getting films, but I think this content seems to be more interesting to me than some of the films I'm getting. And I watch Stranger Things, I watch Game of Thrones, and I don't see it as a step down. I don't see long format, like mini-series or web series as a step down. So I was like, this is going to be the future, and I think I was right, and the pandemic just accelerated whatever I thought would take 5 years, 6 years. It literally accelerated it to within a year or so.
Look, I think all those people that got on board at that time were visionaries, because most people said that it's simply not going to work. But the pandemic, as you said, brought all of that into the fore. Ashwin, what's coming up for you?
I think whoever came into it, I'm doing a film called Tunnel. I finished a film called Tunnel. Mm-hmm. So that's an action thriller. It's Adarva and myself in the film. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting role. I would say it's almost like an antagonist. So it's something that I have not done before. Okay. And I was quite happy to shed all the Yeah, I was actually I was looking to do something slightly. I love great villains in movies, so I was looking to do something like this, and it was different from the whole Chocolate Boy type of thing. And then there's another film I've done called either Vedalam Sulam Kadai, which is an action adventure film. It's about a video game designer who designs a game based on Vikramadityan and Vedalam, and it kind of the entire film kind of is a adventure film on what if the mythology, what is the mythology of Vedalam is real, and what is the difference between storytelling and myth and reality and myth and all that. So it's a very different sort of film that has a very interesting cast. It's got Aishwar Rajesh, Guru Somasundaram, who was a villain in Minal Murli, Abhay Deol, who's a Hindi actor, and it's got an Italian DOP, and one more guy from UK who's a villain. So it's a very eclectic, very different kind of film. So that also, I think, it's in its last stages of production, and hopefully should be releasing in the next few months.
Ashwin, I think your career is just at the beginning. I know from what you've been telling me, and especially your interest in international cinema and your eye for detail, especially the technical aspect, it's going to take you very, very far in the industry. And I think
thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
We've just seen the tip of the iceberg. I know there's a lot more to come from you. And I want to sincerely thank you for your time. I know, speaking to the listeners of Southside FM, our radio station is very, very new. It's just over a year old. Okay. It's the only radio station that caters to the South Indian community in South Africa. Would you like to say a few words directly to the listeners? Because I know there are a lot of people listening in at the moment.
I would just like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to interact or speak to your listeners and your viewers in Southside FM. I've never been to South Africa. I would love to visit, and I hope the audience will support the content, whether it's Tamil or Telugu or Kannada or Hindi or Malayalam, whatever it is. I like you said, it's growing, and I really hope to visit. District 9, I know it's from a South African filmmaker, Neil Blomkamp, so that's one of my favorite films. I would love to come and visit there sometime. I know that's a very sci-fi movie, but whatever I've seen in the country is beautiful.
Tamil ஏதாவது சொல்லுங்க சார்.
தமிழ் சொல்லணும்னா மிக நன்றிங்க for having me on the show, and உங்க listeners-க்கும் உங்க நேயர்களுக்கு மனமார்ந்த வாழ்த்துக்கள் for having this show and appreciating films. I know I used to live abroad at one point, so I know what it's like. ஒரு நம்ம ஊரை விட்டு இன்னொரு ஊருக்கு போகும்போது you're always அந்த வேருக்கு எப்பவுமே தேடிட்டு இருப்போம், some connection to our homeland and stuff like that. So கண்டிப்பா நானும் வெளிநாட்டுல இருக்கும்போது அதெல்லாம் நான் அந்த கனெக்ஷன்ஸ் நான் ரொம்ப எதிர்பார்த்துட்டு இருந்தேன், தேடிட்டு இருந்தேன். So I hope you guys, this is a Southside FM is a great connection for you to to your roots, and I hope to keep coming back on your station and talking to your viewers some more.
And if you do decide to come to South Africa, do remember you do have family and friends here. All you need to do is just connect with us, and we will be happy to host you.
Kandipanga, thank you so much, Miga Nandringa.
Thank you so much for your time. All the very best for your career. And of course, I want to say thank you to Dashnipatha and the Devashree government for arranging this interview with you. And yes, we'll definitely keep in touch, and all the very best in your career.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And that was Ashwin Kakumanu, the star of Pizza 3, recently released, that is early as 2 days ago, speaking to us on Sigaram on Southside FM. But once again, my sincere thanks to Dashnipatha and the Devashree government for arranging this interview.